Have you ever felt a quiet ache beneath your happiness? A whisper that says something in you is waiting to be heard. There is a moment, often unnoticed, when life starts speaking to you in silence. Not through chaos, not through thunder, but through the small discomforts, the quiet sadness, the invisible weight that seems to rest on your chest even when everything looks fine on the outside. That is your soul, trying to get your attention. Most people ignore it. They drown it with noise, with endless scrolling, with shallow company. They tell themselves they're happy because they have no strength left to question what that word even means. But the truth is you feel miserable, not because life is cruel, but because you keep walking further away from your own self. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this is the beginning of your misery the moment you stop listening to the hidden language of your soul. You've been trained to chase light, but never to sit in the dark. You are taught to be kind to others, but not to understand your own pain. You are taught how to survive, but not how to feel alive. You see, misery isn't born from failure. It's born from disconnection, a slow, spiritual forgetting. A forgetting of who you are beneath the noise. A forgetting of the parts of you that once danced freely, before you started performing for approval. Every time you silence your truth to be accepted. Every time you hide your pain behind a smile. Every time you ignore your exhaustion and keep running, you teach your soul that its voice doesn't matter. And the soul, my friend, does not scream. It waits. It whispers. It withdraws. Then one day, you wake up and everything feels gray. Not broken, not terrible, just empty. That is the price of ignoring your inner world. It doesn't explode, it fades. But there's beauty in this realization. Because the moment you recognize that emptiness, the healing begins. Your misery becomes your teacher. Your loneliness becomes a lamp. There is a reason your heart aches. It is not punishment, it is an invitation. An invitation to look inward, to explore the rooms of your soul you have long abandoned, because inside you, there are stories you never told, tears you never cried, and love you never gave yourself. You spend years seeking love from others, but rarely turn that gaze inward. You look for peace in people, in success, in things, but peace is not found there. Peace is the gentle acceptance of who you already are. So, tonight, breathe slowly. Let your body rest in this truth that nothing outside of you can complete what is incomplete within you. The first life lesson that, if ignored, will make your life miserable is this: you must stop abandoning yourself. Every time you choose external comfort over internal truth, you build a quiet cage around your spirit. Every time you say yes when your soul screams no, you reinforce your suffering. You were not born to live half alive. You were born to feel fully, honestly, beautifully, and yes, that includes pain. Pain is not your enemy, it's your compass. When you learn to listen to your discomfort, it transforms from chaos into clarity. You realize it was never trying to destroy you, it was trying to bring you home. Carl Jung believed that everything in us, even the darkest parts, seeks expression. Your sadness, your anger, your fear, they are not defects to be fixed, but voices asking to be heard. Ignoring them is like ignoring a crying child in the next room. The silence doesn't mean the pain has gone away. You have spent so long being what the world needed, that you forgot to ask, what do I need? Who am I? When I stop performing, the journey of healing begins when you stop running from yourself. It begins in the quiet, when you finally say, I'm ready to listen. You see, self-awareness isn't about perfection. It's about courage, the courage to see yourself clearly, to meet your own eyes without flinching. When you stop ignoring the whisper, life softens. You start to see meaning where there was emptiness. You start to feel warmth where there was numbness. You start to live not for approval, not for status, but from your soul. So, tonight, as you listen to this, let it be a moment of pause, a soft reminder that you are not lost, you are being called. Your misery is not failure, it's an unopened letter from your deeper self, and the letter says, come home. I've missed you. But what if the darkness inside you, in trying to hurt you? What if it's trying to be seen? There are parts of you you've learned to hide. Parts you were told are too much, too angry, too sensitive, too strange. So, you locked them away. You became what others could accept, and buried what they couldn't love. But those hidden parts didn't die. They became your shadow, the silent twin of your soul. And, as Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The shadow is everything in you that has been exiled. Your jealousy, your insecurity, your secret desires, even your forgotten talents, the ones you gave up on because the world told you to be practical. You spend your life trying to destroy these pieces, pretending they don't exist. But ignoring your shadow only gives it power. What you repress doesn't disappear, it waits. It hides beneath your laughter. It leaks through your relationships. It controls your emotions in ways you can't see. You may think you're escaping it by staying positive, but the truth is you're just running in circles. You can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. And you can love yourself if you at war with half of who you are. Think about how often you project your pain outward. You judge someone for being arrogant because you've repressed your own need for recognition. You envy someone's freedom because you've caged your own wildness. You criticize others for being emotional because you've been taught that tears are weakness. The world becomes your mirror. Everything you dislike in others is an unhealed fragment of yourself, asking for compassion. This is what Jung called shadow work, not a dark ritual, not a punishment, but an act of radical honesty. It's sitting down with your own pain and saying, I won't run from you anymore. Imagine your shadow, a scared child, not evil, just unseen. Every time you reject it, it cries louder. Every time you accept it, it softens. You begin to see that the parts you feared most were never monsters, they were simply parts of you longing for warmth. The second life lesson that, if ignored, will make your life miserable is this: you must make peace with your shadow. Because no matter how far you run, the shadow follows. It shows up in your relationships, in your moods, in your self-sabotage. It doesn't want revenge, it wants reunion. When you finally turn toward it, you begin to reclaim your lost energy. You feel lighter, more whole. You stop being haunted by your own reactions. You begin to understand why you feel the way you do. Remember this: you were not born divided. Life through pain, shame, and expectation taught you to split yourself into pieces. Healing is simply the art of reunion. You can't always be light, and that's okay. Even the moon needs the night to shine. Your anger, your fear, your longing, they are not wrong. They are signals. They point you toward the parts of your life that crave attention. So next time you feel jealousy, don't just drown it with guilt. Ask it, what are you showing me? Next time you feel resentment, don't suppress it. Whisper to it, what truth are you trying to reveal? Every emotion is a message. Every discomfort is a guidepost. When you begin to listen instead of running, life becomes astonishingly clear. You start to realize that the people who hurt you weren't teachers of cruelty, but mirrors of your boundaries. You realize that your failures weren't curses, but lessons in alignment, and you realize that your darkness was never meant to break you, it was meant to balance you. For too long, society has told us to think positive, to stay happy, but happiness without depth is just noise. You can't feel true peace until you've embraced your chaos. You can't feel true love until you've forgiven your shadow. There is a strange, beautiful relief in admitting that you are both the light and the dark, that your soul is not pure white, it is the color of the universe with infinite shades of experience. And that is what makes you beautiful. When you stop pretending, you stop suffering. Because suffering is resistance to what is. Acceptance, on the other hand, is freedom. You stop asking life to be easy, and you start asking it to be honest. You stop trying to become perfect, and you start trying to become whole. Wholeness isn't achieved by erasing your flaws, it's achieved by integrating them. And in this integration, peace blooms quietly. So, tonight, as you sit in stillness, Try this gentle meditation. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply, and whisper to your shadow, I see you. I'm not afraid anymore. Let that sentence soften something inside you. Because every part of you that was rejected in the light still belongs in your heart. You were never meant to be only good or only bad. You were meant to be human, messy, evolving, and divine in your imperfection. The ones who truly heal are not those who deny their pain, but those who embrace it and say, I will turn even this into light. Your shadow doesn't make you miserable, your denial of it does. When you befriend your darkness, you realize it was never your enemy, it was your forgotten teacher. And its lesson was simple. You are not broken, you are becoming whole. And that brings us to another powerful truth. What if loneliness isn't a punishment, but a doorway? What if it's not the absence of love, but the beginning of seeing it clearly? There are seasons in your life when everyone seems far away. Even when you're surrounded by people, laughing in conversations, or scrolling through endless connections, something in you still feels untouched. You can't quite explain it. It's not sadness. Not exactly. It's more like an invisible space between you and the world. That space is loneliness, but not the kind that destroys, the kind that awakens. You see, loneliness is not always a void. Sometimes, it's the silence life creates so that you can finally hear yourself. We were never really taught to be alone with ourselves. From childhood, we were handed distractions, noise, entertainment, achievement, anything to avoid the rawness of solitude. But solitude is not isolation, it's intimacy with your own soul. When you ignore this, when you constantly chase company to escape your own presence, you lose touch with your essence. You start depending on others for your sense of worth, constantly searching for someone to mirror your existence back to you. And every time they don't, you feel a little more invisible. That is how misery begins, not in the absence of love, but in the absence of self-connection. The psychologist Carl Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But what he didn't say is that it's also the most liberating. To sit in silence and befriend your own company is to realize that you are not as empty as you feared. At first, solitude might feel like loss. You'll crave noise, messages, faces, but stay there a little longer. Something magical happens when you stop resisting your aloneness. The noise settles, and the stillness begins to speak. You start hearing the subtle hum of your inner world, thoughts that were buried, emotions that were silenced. You realize you are never really alone, you are just never truly with yourself. You must learn to be at peace in your own company. Because when you run from solitude, you run from your soul. And when you lose touch with your soul, no amount of love, success, or connection will ever fill that absence. There is a sacred kind of loneliness, the one that cleanses. It strips away illusion. It shows you who is genuine and who is just passing time. It forces you to see the difference between connection and attachment. When you are truly comfortable in your own company, relationships stop being a refuge from loneliness, they become an expression of wholeness. You stop clinging because you no longer fear losing yourself. You stop pretending because silence has taught you authenticity. Solitude teaches you to love differently, not out of need, but out of overflow. You learn that you don't need to be constantly understood to be real. You don't need validation to exist. You begin to understand that your value was never dependent on someone else's attention. And something beautiful happens. The anxiety of being alone transforms into a quiet strength. You start to feel your own energy returning to you. You start creating again, thinking clearly again, breathing more slowly again. In loneliness, you begin to see the truth of things. You see that not everyone who smiles at you has your heart. You see that peace is not found in busy rooms, but in honest moments. You see that love is not possession, it's presence. Solitude opens your eyes to the subtle beauty of life, the sound of rain on windows, the rhythm of your own heartbeat, the serenity of a slow morning. These things were always there. You just couldn't see them through the noise. The world will tell you to stay busy, to keep chasing, to fill every moment. But the soul whispers something else. Be still, and you will remember, You will remember what it feels like to breathe without rushing, to think without fear, to simply exist without needing to prove anything. And in that remembering, misery begins to dissolve, because you realize you were never lonely for people, you were lonely for yourself. There's a concept in Jungian thought that the self, the deeper center of our psyche, is like a hidden temple. You can't find it in crowds, you find it when you sit quietly at its door and wait. The silence you fear is the voice of that temple calling you inward. So, if you are in a season of solitude right now, do not curse it. Do not label it as loss. It is not the end, it is the beginning of seeing. Let your loneliness be your teacher. Let it purify your connections, simplify your desires, and deepen your peace. Because when you can sit in silence and feel whole, then every relationship, every conversation, every act of love becomes sacred, not desperate. And slowly, the ache fades, not because you found someone to fill it, but because you became the someone you were missing. When you can sit quietly and feel complete, you have finally met your soul. Have you ever found yourself in the quiet of the night, utterly alone, and felt the urge to reach for your phone, for a movie, for any distraction to fill the silence? Tonight, I invite you to try something different. Don't run from the quiet. Instead, light a candle. Sit with your thoughts. Just breathe. If you do this, you might begin to sense it, a quiet, gentle warmth. That's the feeling of your own presence, your own company. And that, my friends, is one of the most profound kinds of love there is. There's a beautiful idea that the cracks in your soul are signs of weakness, but rather, they are the very places where the light has been trying to enter all along. Life has a way of teaching us. There comes a time when it stops asking politely and begins to teach through pain. It might show up as a sudden heartbreak, a painful betrayal, a crushing failure, or a deep loss. These are the moments that strip away the illusion that we were ever in control. Your first instinct is to resist, to question, to cry out, "Why me?" But if you listen closely, underneath all that chaos, something sacred is unfolding. Because pain, as cruel and unwelcome as it feels, is not here to destroy you. It's here to reveal you. Think about it. Your wounds aren't random. They are carefully carved lessons from the deeper intelligence of life. Every single heartbreak, every disappointment, every ending, it carries a message. A message meant to awaken something inside you that comfort and ease could never touch. This leads to a crucial life lesson. If you ignore your wounds, misery will follow. What you don't transform, you transmit. You carry it into your next relationship, your next big decision, your next dream. The great psychologist Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Pain opens your eyes in ways that peace and comfort never could." You must learn to honor your wounds as teachers, not as curses. Most of us treat pain like an unwanted intruder. We try to numb it with distractions, we run from it, or we cover it up with forced positivity. But true, deep healing only begins when you stop asking the pain to leave and instead, you start asking what it came to teach you. Maybe that devastating heartbreak wasn't meant to break you, but to finally show you all the love you kept giving away to others, without saving any for yourself. Maybe those failures weren't meant to humiliate you, but to strip you of your ego and reveal a quieter, more resilient strength you never knew you had. And perhaps the people who left your life weren't a punishment, but rather, space being made for your own essential growth. Every wound you receive will reshape you, that's a guarantee, but you get to decide how. You can allow it to make you bitter and closed off, or you can let it make you wise and open-hearted. You can let your pain define you, or you can let it refine you. True wisdom isn't born from endless success, it's born from survival. It's found in learning how to keep your heart open even when it's aching. It is in the profound realization that your capacity to feel deep pain is directly connected to your capacity to feel deep love. When you start to see your suffering not as a burden, but as a form of sacred alchemy, life begins to make a quiet, profound sense. You start to understand that even your darkest nights were not wasted. They were the fertile soil from which your compassion and empathy grew. You'll begin to notice the small, subtle ways pain has matured you. You listen more intently to others. You judge less harshly. You love more carefully, more truthfully. You no longer try to rush the healing process. You learn to respect its natural rhythm. You understand that healing in a straight line. It comes in waves, and it's perfectly okay to still feel the hurt sometimes. Each time the pain resurfaces, it's not a sign of failure. It's just another layer peeling away, another truth revealing itself to you. You begin to see that your wounds are what make you human, and your humanity is where your divinity is hidden. Picture a cracked Japanese vase, repaired with golden lacquer, the art of kintsugi. That is you. Every scar shines, not because it's trying to be perfect, but because it's real. It tells a story of endurance, of transformation, of grace. There is an incredible beauty in admitting that you don't have it all together, that you've been broken, and yet you still choose love, that you've been lost, and yet you still choose to have faith, that you've cried countless tears, and yet you still choose to see the world with a soft and gentle heart. That, right there, is wisdom. Pain is a great humbler. It shatters your illusions and breaks down your ego. It shows you what really matters in this life. It strips away all the superficial desires and brings you closer to your own truth. When you have walked through fire and survived, you stop being afraid of the flames. You realize they were never meant to consume you, only to purify you. And then, something profound shifts inside. You start forgiving those who hurt you, not because they necessarily deserve it, but because you deserve to be free from carrying that weight. You start accepting your past, not because it was fair, but because it made you who you are today. And you start loving yourself, not because you're flawless, but because you've finally seen how much you've carried and how gracefully you've endured. In every great spiritual awakening, there is a sacred wound, that place where the heart breaks open and the ego shatters. And it's from that very crack that the light pours in. That light is wisdom. As Jung also said, the soul often needs suffering to wake up. This isn't suffering for the sake of punishment, but for the sake of depth. Without pain, we remain shallow, untouched by the profound tenderness that comes from true empathy. And empathy is what makes us human. It's what connects us to one another. It's what turns your personal chaos into a universal compassion, your suffering into a service for others. So, the next time you feel that old hurt, try shifting your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me about love?" That one simple shift can turn misery into meaning, because every wound, once it is understood, becomes a window away of seeing the world and others through softer, more compassionate eyes. You start recognizing the pain in other people because you have finally met it and made peace with it in yourself. And that recognition, that shared understanding, is where our collective humanity truly begins. There's a quiet miracle in this process. You realize you no longer wish your pain away because it shaped you. It carved out space within you for light and wisdom to dwell. When you finally reach this understanding, you don't just heal, you evolve. You begin to carry your scars not as symbols of shame, but as badges of wisdom. So, tonight, when you think of all that has hurt you, whisper gently to yourself, "Thank you for shaping me. Thank you for showing me who I truly am." And slowly, you'll feel the pain loosen its grip. Not because you've forgotten it, but because you finally learned to love the person it helped you become. You do not heal by erasing your wounds. You heal by realizing they were never proof of your weakness, but of your infinite capacity to grow. There comes a moment, usually after the storms have passed and the tears have dried, when you begin to feel something new. It's not excitement or even relief. It's something much gentler, something still. That stillness is the feeling of awakening. It doesn't arrive like a clap of thunder. It's more like the morning light slipping quietly through your curtains, reminding you that the life you were searching for was never outside of you. It was always within. You begin to see how all the lessons, the heartbreaks, the lonely nights, they were never punishments. They were preparation. Each one taught you a language your soul had forgotten. And now, standing here, a little wiser and a little quieter, you realize that nothing was wasted. Even your pain was sacred. The final lesson is this: you must awaken to your own being. Peace, love, and meaning were never missing, you were just asleep to them. The misery you felt was never about life being cruel. It was about being disconnected from your own beautiful, resilient essence. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more reflections. I wish you peace on your journey. For so long, you were living through borrowed identities. The expectations of your family, the opinions of society, the constant comparisons. You thought your worth came from doing, achieving, and being seen. But awakening teaches you that your worth was never earned, it was always inherent. When you begin to awaken, you stop running from life, you start walking with it. You no longer need constant excitement to feel alive, because you've discovered the quiet joy of simply being. You no longer seek to be understood by everyone, because you finally understand yourself. You start choosing peace over drama, solitude over noise, truth over comfort. You stop forcing people to stay, because you trust that what's meant for your growth will remain. You stop chasing validation, because you see that the person you were trying so hard to impress was the one who needed your love the most. Awakening is not an escape from life, it's a deep acceptance of it. You begin to embrace all of it, the light and the shadow, the laughter and the grief, the beginnings and the endings, as necessary pieces of your unfolding story. You stop labeling your emotions as good or bad. You realize they are simply movements of energy, each one trying to guide you back to balance. A calmness enters your life when you stop needing everything to make sense. You begin to trust the rhythm of things. You learn to rest in uncertainty, knowing that even what you can't control has a deeper purpose. You start noticing the sacred in the ordinary, the way sunlight dances on your hands, the sound of your own breathing, the softness of a single moment fully lived. You realize that joy was never something to find, it was something to feel. It was always waiting just beneath your striving, just beneath your fear. And in that moment of realization, something within you unclenches. You forgive. Not because they asked for it, but because you're tired of carrying the weight of pain. You forgive yourself for staying too long, for trying too hard, for not knowing any better. You begin to live gently, with less judgment and more awareness. Because awakening doesn't mean you'll never suffer again. It means suffering will no longer define you. It means you can sit with pain without drowning in it. You can watch fear without becoming it. You can let life move through you without losing your center. You begin to trust that every ending is a return not to what was, but to what is truer. The search ends, the striving softens, and what remains is peace. Not the loud, ecstatic kind, but the still, luminous kind, the one that hums quietly beneath your ribs, whispering, "I'm home." You start living differently now. You speak slower. You listen deeper. You love with presence instead of attachment. You move with purpose instead of pressure. You finally understand that healing was never about becoming someone new, it was about remembering who you already are. The one who existed before the labels, before the trauma, before the world told you who to be. That is your truest self, timeless, untouched, and whole. And that self doesn't need fixing. It just needs your attention. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be real. You are here to feel deeply, to love courageously, to fall and rise again and again until you remember that even in your breaking, you are never separate from the divine. That is the awakening, not an escape from the world, but a deeper intimacy with it. You begin to see the same consciousness in every face, every tree, every sound. You begin to realize we are all one story, different expressions of the same eternal breath. You no longer fight the current, you float with it. You no longer fear the unknown, you bow to it. And in that surrender, you are free. So take a deep breath, feel your chest rise and fall. Feel the life moving through you, the same life that moves through everything. It has been waiting for you to notice, And now that you have, the world looks softer. Not because it changed, but because you did. The storm no longer frightens you. The loneliness no longer defines you. The pain no longer enslaves you. Because you have learned the greatest lesson of all. You are not your circumstances. You are the consciousness experiencing them. You have come home to the quiet sanctuary of your own being. And there, in that stillness, you finally understand. When you finally understand yourself, you stop needing to be understood. So rest now. You have traveled far through shadow and silence, through loneliness and light. You have met your wounds, your fears, your forgotten self, and now, you are home. Sit quietly in that truth. Let it hold you. Let it breathe through you, because awakening, in a destination, it's this very moment, right here, where you finally stop searching and simply be. You cannot receive with clenched fists. Sometimes, life asks you to open your hands and trust what leaves. Letting go is one of the hardest lessons your soul will ever learn. Because somewhere deep down, you still believe that holding on tighter means you care more. You think that if you can control, protect, and preserve, nothing valuable will slip away. But the truth is, clinging is the language of fear, not love. Love, in its highest form, allows space, it honors freedom. It understands that what's real will never need to be caged. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist, persists." In the same way, what you cling to begins to suffocate under the pressure of your grasp. We cling to people who have already left us emotionally. We cling to memories of how things used to be. We cling to versions of ourselves that no longer fit who we're becoming. And then we wonder why we feel so heavy, why every step forward feels like dragging a ghost. The truth is simple, yet painful. You cannot grow and grip the past at the same time. Letting go isn't betrayal, it's faith. It's saying, I trust that if this chapter is ending, something deeper must be beginning. There's grief in letting go. You'll feel it like waves, some days gentle, some days crushing, and that's okay. Because grief isn't weakness, it's love with nowhere left to go. Let it move through you. Let it wash away what no longer serves you. You see, everything you lose externally prepares you to gain something internally. The world takes away what no longer aligns with your becoming. At first, it feels like punishment. Later, it feels like peace. When you let go, you don't lose, you make space. Space for breath, space for joy, space for the next season of your life to unfold. Think about the trees. They let go of every leaf, every single year, and yet they never fear being bare. Because they trust the spring, they trust the cycle, they trust life. That's the wisdom of surrender, to trust that the same force that guided you through pain will also guide you through rebirth. This is a life lesson that, if ignored, will make your life harder. You must learn to let go before life forces you to. Because when you resist endings, you prolong suffering. When you surrender, you open yourself to transformation. Letting go is not forgetting. It's remembering without needing to return. It's loving without needing possession. It's walking away without bitterness, only gratitude. When you truly let go, you begin to see the divine rhythm in everything. People come, people go, seasons bloom, seasons fade. And beneath it all, the soul remains, constant, calm, eternal. So take a deep breath, exhale what's gone. You don't need to carry yesterday's weight into tomorrow's dawn. Sometimes peace is found by adding more, but by releasing what no longer fits your truth. As you learn to let go, life stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a flow. You move in harmony with time instead of fighting against it. You stop chasing closure and start creating freedom. You begin to see that love, too, is a river, not a chain. And the ones meant for your journey will flow with you, effortlessly. So, tonight, if you feel the ache of something ending, don't run from it. Breathe through it. Whisper to yourself, I am not losing. I am evolving. You'll find that what was never truly yours will drift away. But what is meant for your soul will find you again, in peace, not pain. At the heart of all wisdom lies one simple truth. You are here, now, in this breath. Everything else is an illusion. The past lives only in memory. The future lives only in imagination. But you live here, in this sacred moment. And yet, most of our misery comes from forgetting that. We drift endlessly through our thoughts, replaying yesterday, fearing tomorrow, and missing the only thing that's real, this moment, right now. Presence is not something you have to achieve. It's something you simply have to remember. You were born present. Just look at a child, completely absorbed in wonder, tasting the world without judgment, alive in every single heartbeat. That was once you, and it still is, just buried beneath all the noise. The modern mind fears stillness. It fills every moment of silence with distractions because silence reveals the truth. But truth isn't loud. It's soft, like a whisper just beneath your thoughts. And to hear it, you must quiet the storm inside. The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung often wrote about the self, that deeper center that exists beyond the ego's endless chatter. To live from that place is to be awake within the dream. It's to see life not as chaos to control, but as consciousness unfolding perfectly in its own time. And that brings us to the ultimate lesson. You must return to presence. Again and again, until it becomes your home. Being present doesn't mean your life will be free from pain. It means you'll stop creating unnecessary suffering. Because suffering lives in resistance and wishing the moment were different. Peace, on the other hand, lives in acceptance in saying, this, too, belongs. When you are fully present, even the smallest things become holy. The sound of rain becomes a song. The warmth of your tea becomes a ceremony. The simple beating of your heart becomes profound proof of your existence. Presence heals what the mind complicates. It brings you back to simplicity, back to your essence. You realize you don't need to fix everything. You just need to be with it, gently and lovingly. When you practice presence, you start to notice how much beauty you've been missing: the kindness of strangers, the grace in your own breath, the quiet intelligence of life moving through you. In presence, love deepens. You stop looking for grand, dramatic gestures and start finding divinity in the small, quiet moments: a shared smile, a soft glance, a peaceful morning together. This is what the awakened soul understands. You are not here to rush toward a future. You are here to experience the eternal now. Every single breath is a new beginning. Every moment is an invitation to return not to somewhere else, but to yourself. Presence also humbles you. It shows you how temporary everything is: the joy, the pain, the people, the seasons. And instead of fearing that impermanence, you begin to cherish it. Because when you truly understand that nothing lasts forever, gratitude becomes your natural state. You stop clinging because you see the sacredness in the fleeting. You stop hating change because you see that every moment dying gives birth to another moment being born. That's the circle of life, death, and rebirth, happening again and again, in every breath you take. Presence can turn even suffering into wisdom, because it teaches you to face what is with awareness, not avoidance. You begin to hold both the pain and the beauty without needing one to disappear. You simply allow, and in that allowing, peace blossoms. So, as we draw to a close, take one more slow, deep breath. Feel it move through your body, anchoring you right here, right now. You are no longer chasing. You are no longer escaping. You are simply being, and that is more than enough. In the quiet of this moment, just listen. There is no future to reach, no past to regret. There is only this, the living pulse of now, whispering to you, you made it home. And when you live from this place of presence, every day becomes sacred. You don't need to seek meaning anymore, because you are meaning. You don't need to search for love anymore, because you are love. You don't need to beg for peace anymore, because you are peace. This is the awakening, not loud or dramatic, but soft, tender, and incredibly real. When you finally understand yourself, you stop needing to be understood by others. And that is where your journey finds its peace, not with fireworks, but with stillness. Not with a million answers, but with a quiet awareness. Not with becoming a new self, but with embracing the quiet truth of the one you've been all along. Welcome home. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. If these words resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more reflections on our shared journey. Take care.